Our friend Jay Caufield is on the line.
Speaking of very interesting.
A very interesting man. He's on the Nemacolin Fan Hotline. He's also brought to you by the Disc Institute of Pittsburgh. Jay, how are you today?
Good, guys. How are you?
Doing quite well and excited to talk about the Penguins. I mean, really, the whole city's attention turns fully to them at this point, and what a good time to turn to them. Man, it looked like the final game of their road trip was going to go down the tubes early. And then a lot of people pointed to what was said in the locker room between the first and second period. And that was my first question today. Because you'll have people say that stuff never makes a difference. And other people say you can make a huge difference. Where do you fall on that? Do you remember a time in your career where something that was said by a coach, by a teammate, actually made a difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think in this game, I think it did have a difference. I think also, Yelene, I mean, Mike Sullivan's taking it off of him and saying the players, the leadership in the room. Well, I believe that, but I also believe that what he has to say, and then there's a sternness, I'm sure, to him when he went in the locker room. And if you looked at that game, they weren't dramatically outplayed in the first period. The shots were 8-7 in favor of the Penguins, and one gets by Jarry early, and then they get behind the eight ball, maybe miscommunication off of a draw, and I think Mike Sullivan has seen his team enough to realize that they can make a comeback, and the next goal would have been really important. So I think if you went across the room and looked at everybody and made it short and sweet and something about there's enough talent in this room, we can come back in this type of game and just play their game. I mean, they weren't good they weren't as good as they were. The last couple games weren't their best outings, and they came away with one win in one of them and so on and so forth. So I believe it's something like that. And, Joe, I do believe in hockey more than probably any other sport, really. I mean, just because it's a tight room, 20 guys that are playing, they're in the locker room, and when a coach comes in, if everybody knew they didn't have a good period, they weren't playing good hockey. And I believe if you have a coach like Mike Sullivan that comes in, who has all the respect in the world and commands it, and rightfully so, I believe when he speaks, people are going to listen to that. And I think they just went out there on a mission and took the game over. I think that's what it's a mix of that. Again, they weren't dramatically outplayed, even though at times the speed game of Vegas was they were driving, they were getting to the blue paint, all those kind of things. But you also know it was one goal. If you make it 3-1, then you got a game. And that's how it played out.
Jay, you're right, and I think this was concerning Sullivan after that first period.
Yeah.
They won the game before in San Jose 2-1 in overtime, but I don't think he liked how they played there. The goaltender, the kid Domingue saved them, and then L.A. was maybe their worst game of the year when they got beat 6-2. I think he was really concerned about getting the ship turned around, if you will, and I think that's why those last two periods were so important to them.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ron. And as Joe was mentioning, I do believe that's when a coach will step in. As I said, he's not going to get up on the podium and say, "Yeah, it's my speech that turned it around." He's going to say it's the leadership, which he does because he has some of the greatest players ever played a game in that locker room. So he's going to lean on them. But the fact that I'm not in there, I'm not in it, but I could just think what he might say. And I think it's in the hockey world. You're right, Ron. The game in L.A. not good. The game in San Jose, Domingue was outstanding, and then it started off that way in the third. And you need to change it and right the ship and all the phrases you want to use. But I believe certainly Mike Sullivan had something to say, and it was enough to redirect their focus, if you will. And it's a long trip back from the West if you lay an egg on their last game. So they corrected it and certainly came out and dominated at times. And Tristan Jarry was great the last 40 minutes.
All right, Jay, I'm not going to bury the lead here. After last week's appearance, we sent you the photo of Ron in the form-fitting Bills jersey. As a man who has trained elite athletes, I consider Ron, especially in a situation like that, to be an aging Sean Connery, maybe an Ernest Hemingway, maybe a Gordie Howe type figure. You?
Oh yeah, I mean, I couldn't even respond after I saw the picture. I didn't know what to even say because when it was texted me, the picture says it all. And yeah, Ron, I mean, all the walking you're doing and everything you've been, making sure you do every day is certainly making a difference. And I'm sure all the ladies in Pittsburgh are going to love that.
Oh, you guys. I blame. This is Starkey's fault. I really
No,
do.
this swept social media. This is
Right.
not an exaggeration, Jay. In all honesty, peeling all this back, are you surprised that Ron has that kind of physique at his age?
I was caught off guard. I told you, Joe. I couldn't even respond. I just couldn't. When I went to text something back, I didn't have any words.
All
for
right,
it,
enough of you guys. Let's talk about this Penguins team that's 13-2, 18-4-1, and Jay, they're just now getting healthy. I saw the note the other day. The game in Vegas was the first time all year they had the four centers that they envisioned: Sid, Malkin, Carter, and Bluger playing together. I mean, how much better can they be once, Russ is back now again after being out and Malkin gets going? It's pretty exciting, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think so, Ron. And I think you have Heinen and Zach Aston-Reese still coming back. To me, the depth, the strength in there, you didn't know how this was going to play out. But when you look at this right now and Malcolm being, feeling, I'm sure the way he talks feels good. To have that depth now who are you taking out of the lineup? It's one of those things. It's that healthy competition. Who's performing, who's not, what kind of changes need to be made. But you get Heinen back in the fold, and then you have Zach Aston-Reese, who, I don't want to say just defensive specialist because that's not all they want from him, but you get a solid you build and make up your fourth line the way you want to, and it's the defensive zone draws. It's the important plays during a game that you need to have something out there that you can rely on. So when all these guys come back, I mean, it's a shame somebody's got to get pulled out of the lineup who's performing and doing a good job. But that's the way it goes. And they have depth, and I think it is exciting to see where they can go with it. They've had three deep pairings that have stayed together. I don't know the number of games now, but it's been the same rotation. That alone is something that's very big. And you have Jari as your goaltender, and now I think it's look, I mean, Domingue had a great game when he came back. It's Casey DeSmith, and they're trying to figure out how comfortable are they with their backup goaltending situation, and that'll play itself out as we move forward here. But what a lineup and what a great goaltending they're getting, and an all-star appearance for Jari, and you need all those phases to put yourself into that position to be a champion.